Barbara Ireland was nearly dead. I think everyone who has a near-death experience and returns with a memory, information, and often guidance or teaching is special. Many of us have shared it, and it connects with many, but it's beautifully crafted for that individual in their lives. Certainly, my case. Mine began before singing. A singing and music career was my goal. I played music my whole life and toured with Pearl Jam guitarist Stone Gossard. While having fun on stage in Brooklyn, I noticed a man in the audience hate our concert in front of me. His verbality was obvious without words. Unmissable big guy in front of me, crossing his arms and not into it. At first, I thought, oh, we're playing badly. Or we had a few different people on stage with us, and he's not liking that. Then I thought, wait a minute, he doesn't like my singing. He doesn't like me, my singing. It was amazing to see. First, some won't like your presentation, but I was obsessed with this dude. Who really cares? There's hundreds of people that are enjoying it. But I hooked in, and as soon as I got these negative thoughts about our band, this and that, and then they landed on me, I started thinking about how bad I am a singer, how I'll forget the lyrics, and how I'm even on stage with Stone. What's up? That was my first exposure to this deluge of negative ideas. I was talking to myself harshly. That night in bed, I thought about this, especially my vicious self-talk. Listen in on yourself as you complain about doing something wrong, being late, being clumsy, or we think, oh, you're doing that again, or other old stuff. I heard these, but there were so many that night that I thought, I need to get rid of them. They're clearly not healthy for me. They're not making my life any happier. What am I going to do? I considered joining the boot camp where you face fears, develop courage, and overcome boundaries daily. That'll do. I studied and signed up while resting at home after the tour. This boot camp starts months later. I invited my best friend. I was lucky to have my friend. It was hard daily. It was. My non-disclosure agreement prevents me from saying, but high things, blindfolds, fire, and scary people jumped out to scare you and help you with life's scary issues. My experience was awful. I wouldn't recommend the camp. Ate and drank a lot every day while tent camping to avoid dehydration. We slept horribly. 3 hours of sleep per night for a week. You couldn't dally on the last day, a timed endurance event in the sun, but it took hours. My body started acting odd halfway through. I felt dehydrated and needed to drink more water when my legs started shaking and making an echoey sound. Drinking more water. As we returned to the starting line, these visual contortions became more dramatic and terrifying, until streamers covered everything, and I couldn't hear my partner. She'd say, "What's happening?" in a distorted voice, but I could hear someone nearby. I finished it by the time we returned, and people were strobing at the start, which frightened me. I said, "Please get me a medic. I think I'm going to faint." I sat on the ground in the woods and waited for a long time. Someone returned and said, "Oh, they said to just sit down. You'll be fine." Maybe they said that since this camp had no medic, which is bizarre. Since he wasn't a doctor, I'm glad their medic was nice. His cheeks flushed every time he took blood pressure, electrolytes, and other stuff. Fear more afterward. My friend asked, "What happened to you?" We noticed my gray skin, black circles under my eyes, and empty, out-of-focus eyes. Electrolytes helped my heat stroke. I drank lots of water because it was hot, but heat stroke has stroke-like symptoms. That muddled my senses. More importantly for my body was hyponatremia, which occurs when you wash too much sodium out of your blood. Drinking too much water or sweating like I did all week can trigger this. I also found that my body doesn't hold much sodium, must consume lots of salt. Heat stroke and life-threatening hyponatremia occurred simultaneously. This kind but so-called medic remarked, "Well, let's take you back to your tent and have you lie down." We did. My tent was too hot, so I lay under this lovely tree. Almost cried thinking about the tree because I felt she was watching over me. I lay there with my friend holding my hand. Suddenly, my leg got numb and disappeared, which was scary. I shouted about my leg to my friend. It also affected my other leg. One arm, then another. I felt like a body and head under this tree, fearful and vulnerable, crying like never before. Air left my head. After reading enough spiritual books, I realized that when people die, their life energy leaves their head, which scared me to death. Not dying was my goal. In a remote area without cell phones, no one imagined they'd perish. I was healthy. My grandma lived to 104, and my great-grandfather to 106. Therefore, I ought to live. I was scared. Then a movie started. With my eyes closed, you could. The combo, not a memory, yet memories sometimes seem like films. It was crystal clear, not hazy like a memory. I felt like I was seeing a movie about a band session 2 weeks earlier. I disagreed with my brother in another band. The difference between being in and seeing these movies is hard to describe, but I felt everything. I lived the moment and viewed it like a movie. The movie froze on one frame during our debate. The voice sprang out of nowhere as I raged. My inner conversation voice wasn't normal, but I could hear it. The calm, empathetic male voice inquired, "What were you thinking at that moment?" That stopped me, worried about my legs and everything. I wondered, what was I thinking? Until I said it. The tiny video finished and a fresh one started when I answered. The speaker questioned, "What were you thinking right then?" When I raised an eyebrow during the freeze frame. It happened again. I looked down during discussion freeze framing this time. "What were you thinking when you lowered your head?" Ask. This took hours. These were adulthood repetitions that lasted years and several partnerships. Moment-specific thinking. To avoid judging or being friendly, I lied a couple times. The polite, non-judgmental voice said, "Are you sure about that?" After knowing the answer, making me reconsider. By replying, "Well, actually no. I was actually thinking blah, blah, blah." The question would disappear and a new movie would begin. Over several hours, my skull collapsed. Being outside my body made me weaker and less concentrated. After 3 hours, the movie stopped. A blank screen appeared, and the voice said, "Barbara, you have a choice now. Would you like to stay or go?" I understood. I can stay or leave Earth as a person. Only because I've crossed over am I crying. One foot was in, one out. I was nearly gone. What was opposite removed death fear, not dying process, but death moment. I've never felt this type of love here, therefore I'm not afraid. As if, like air, love molecules surround everything. It's everywhere and composed. So you love. It's not here, therefore I can't explain. The whole team was kind, forgiving, comforting, and supportive. Everything we appreciate about healthy relationships and kindness in ourselves and others was there 1,000-fold. I was tempted to leave when given the choice because it's nice and exciting, but I had relationships here. In addition to relationships and unfinished business, I enjoyed life. I considered my love of food, movement, nature, reading, and creating. In a humble way, my inquiries about my half-finished albums, screenplays that weren't made into movies, and other writings were funny. The guide answered, "Well, Barbara, those really don't matter that much." I find it funny because everyone has life goals. But he said, "What really matters are your connections with other people, your relationships. If your projects connect you with them, connect them with themselves, connect them with other people, open something new within them, their heart or their mind, then yes, they're worth a lot. And even if you don't have it, okay, well, it's fun, that's great, but it's not that big a deal. But if they are connecting, then it's worth a lot." I chose okay. I would like to come back to my body. The voice said, if you go back, you have to contact these 4 people. 3 of them you must see in that week. Tell them about your experience, and tell them things like how much I love the person. It's not just, hey, I love you, just wanted you to know. I mean it. After that, the whole other side collapsed from my experience. That puffy air started reversing its direction, going back into my body. My limbs started coming back to life, and I was fully back in my body within minutes. I opened my eyes, and it was like opening your eyes to a world so transformed because it was so extraordinarily beautiful. Think this world is probably equal parts difficult, and I opened my eyes and saw the tree, my friend, and her, with the sun down and now a golden auburn hue, a great fat bee bumbling around a flower, the grass color, the fragrances, and a lecture far off. It blew my mind what we got to experience here. After a month, I heard those negative thoughts again, but most were anxieties. Like that night with Stone, I was scared I wouldn't hit a note, forget my words, don't belong on stage, and shouldn't be a singer. I became more normal by stopping to listen to music, taste my food, and smell every flower on walks. When those negative thoughts returned, I was upset. I sat down and thought, wait, what was I thinking during those hours of watching those small flicks? Unifying factor. Then I realized it was the same question. More or less, the whole time. It was all about what I was thinking. This guide was trying to show me a very simple thing. Maybe all of us know. Maybe we don't, or at least we're not very conscious of it. I don't think what we're thinking has a total connection with what's happening, and it was showing me this connection between negative thinking and the outer world, and how they're dancing with each other in a way that was causing me a hell of a lot of harm and suffering. I studied neuroscience, cellular biology, which is a lot about how we feel about things, which is also connected to our thoughts. Studied spiritual traditions on this, from a lot of different angles, for 3 years solid, from a layperson's standpoint anyway. But I gained a lot of knowledge, and I practiced all sorts of different techniques on myself. And slowly, I noticed my happiness started raising. My happiness started being more regular instead of up and down, and the worries started evening out. My thoughts were much kinder to myself. I was a kinder person to myself and others. And slowly, money started shifting, energy started shifting, relationships started healing really fast. And I thought, okay, there's something really big to this. And after about 3 years, I had really settled on a method I was using for myself. I call it the de-looping method because what I discovered is there are 2 kinds of negative thoughts. One is a negative thought that comes into our head. We can't control what we think, but we can control whether we're going to grasp onto that and chew it. When negative thoughts come in, are we going to grasp it or let it go? Was grasping a lot, and what I call looping on thoughts, especially worries, and I couldn't stop the loop. It's like when you get a stupid song stuck in your head and you just can't stop it. Well, I figured out how to stop those songs. You replace them with a different song, and very soon the first song's going to go away. You can't push it away. You can't push negative thoughts away. The more you push on those things, the stronger they get. What you resist persists, fully connects here, and what I realized is there is a glass ceiling to joy, and the only thing holding us back is how we are perceiving what's happening out there. That's just happening, but are we going to take it in and contort it and make it into this big disaster in our minds that we're going to loop on? The second we do that, negative emotions start, negative behaviors start, we start going downhill, and it goes bad. So I've learned to basically interrupt the loop. I can't stop the negative thought, but I can stop myself from looping on this thing, from hooking in. If we can't hear what we're saying in our heads, we can't do a thing about it. It's just going to run our lives like it did mine when I'm on stage, and all these thoughts are bombarding. And I thought, Having all those all the time. I just don't know it. Well, the answer was yes. Carl Jung said this amazing thing. Until we make the unconscious conscious, it will direct our life, and we will just call it fate. That's more or less the quote. Until we make the unconscious conscious, these negative thoughts are going to direct our life, and we're just going to call it fate. But what if we make them conscious, and then we unhook from these negative thoughts? These worst-case scenarios, these resentments, these jealousies, these anxieties, this self-doubt. What happens if you unhook from the loop of self-doubt? Can you imagine what could be possible for every single person when they start unhooking from that and bringing in thoughts that are helping them and releasing the pockets of negative energy that are left over from these thoughts that get stored in the body? When those start going, when they start healing, there's room for true miracles to start happening. I feel like this near-death experience was a true miracle for me. So, information about the de-looping method and my book, they're in the description. And I wish anyone watching this to just take this one thing away. Just start listening to what is being said in your head. First thing when you wake up or while you're on the phone with someone you know that kind of triggers you, listen to the things your mind starts telling you. Or if you're about to give a presentation or you're called into your boss's office, what are you saying in your head before you go in? Just notice these things because those are our clues about where we can heal ourselves, where we can start de-looping, and where we can start gaining a whole lot more joy.